Welcome to another remote broadcast of City Talk as we all continue to deal with the pandemic and broadcast and interview folks remotely. I'm John McIntire and say hello to Duane Ashley of Parks and Rec. Duane, welcome to City Talk.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. How are you today?
Pretty good considering we're all in the middle of a global pandemic, but otherwise all is fine, or as fine as it can be.
Exactly.
So you work with Parks and Rec. Tell us what you do there specifically.
Correct. So I'm a program supervisor on the recreation side of Parks and Recreation Department. And what that really entails is I oversee 10 recreation centers, and we have a few satellite sites as well that, are mainly just used for rentals and things of that nature. And, I oversee, just the day-to-day operations, whether that's actually facility issues, that obviously I'll, work hand in hand with DPW, or, just the program aspect of it, and that ranges from sports to art to educational aspects. We have, summer camps, after school programs, and things of that nature.
So under normal circumstances, you'd be supervising a lot of people going into the many rec centers we have in the city, playing basketball, working out, all sorts of sporting activities. But now you're doing it mostly remotely via the internet.
Correct. Yes. So even, just shifting gears toward that, our after school program, obviously, Pittsburgh Public Schools still, aren't physically in the classroom yet. So in order to, still, reach the kids and, just anybody from the community, us alongside with Nancy Burns, her office, the CP office, they were able to create after school take-home kits. So, during the whole pandemic, we've been doing grab and go lunches to where, the parents or the, children would come, grab a lunch and, they'll be on their way. But now we're also able to give them a nice take-home kit, to where they're able to do activities, educational, enrichment, art projects, just fun things. And that's how we really had to shift gears, really in the pandemic now.
How difficult was it to shift gears, and how much planning did it take to just totally change what you do?
So it definitely was difficult, but it wasn't too difficult, especially in Parks and Rec. We're always, trying to figure out, some things, last minute, not, just as a fault of anybody, but it's always, if something comes up, you have to figure out how to, make an adjustment. So it was more so the most difficult aspect of it, just how you mentioned though, was more so just the uncertainty of everything. It's one, regulation, we're planning for this, and then it changes, and now we're planning for this. And then we're trying to, get ahead of the game as well. So we have, tentative plans of this aspect change, around the country right now. But it wasn't too difficult, but, we have a pretty good team that was able to manage well.
Obviously, the situation is really weird for all of us, to say the least. It must be really weird for you. All this equipment unused, all these buildings, nobody's in them. I mean, that's just
it's very weird, and even just things like this is always good because I'm seeing people now. I'm used to seeing a lot of people, obviously, at each one of my recreation centers. So it's drastically different, but it's feeling like one long day at this point. We were off since March, not physically in the building setting. And, we thought we were going to be off for a few weeks, and here we are, and it's October. So it's very weird.
Where are you from originally, Duane, and how did you develop an interest in recreation?
So originally, I grew up in Garfield, and, right over on the east side from, when I was born into the age of about 13. And then I moved to Brookline, where I've met some of my staff members as well. I'll even just give a shout out to one, Clint Burton. He's the center director at West Penn. He was the first person I've actually met in Brookline. And the way I actually, got a passion for city parks. My father used to be director of city parks. And then after that, he was the director of operations. But when I was growing up, city parks is really all I knew. He took me around to everywhere, whether it was the recreation centers, the special events department used to be with city parks. I used to be at the special events. and of course I used to have to volunteer and things of that nature. So, I really got a passion for it just from being involved basically my whole life. So.
But you applied for and got this job years after your dad left. Did you have any idea when you were a kid that one day you'd actually be more or less following in his footsteps?
Not at all. Not at all. I after college, was really just trying to figure out, what I wanted to do. And, so I'm like, what, I'll have an interest, still. Let me apply to, one of the city parks jobs, got into it. And, it was just pretty fun just interacting with people that I already known from when I was a child, or just, just the different ways things have progressed since my dad has retired or from when I was a child, and being involved in, those changes are pretty cool.
I know you told me when we talked on the phone before this that you've had to postpone a very important moment in your life. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so we were off of work, I think, March 16th, and my wedding was supposed to have been on March 28th. So you could imagine, that was a big whirlwind. Like my fiance and I are still, just trying to juggle things around. So it was pretty, it was a pretty hectic, time during that whole thing, obviously focus on, the job aspect, but also, my wedding that, we planned for, months that we had to, really scramble to try to change. And
now
like
you've come up with a new date, if I remember correctly, for the third time, but this time you're doing it come hell or high water.
Yes, that's correct. Yes. So my new date is going to be November 28th. No matter what, we're getting married that day. We don't know how it's going to look still. Actually, this week we're, meeting with the venue and, just for all the safety measures and the COVID regulations that we have to abide by, and, obviously guest limitations and things of that nature. So November 28th, even if we couldn't have it at the venue, we're getting married that day. Just because we don't know how things are still going to look in the future. So.
Right. I don't want to be too personal, but will you get to have a honeymoon, or will you just postpone that?
So that's another thing. So we've postponed the honeymoon as well, because the honeymoon initially was going to be directly after the wedding, and now we are still, if we're going to go somewhere where we really want to have the full experience,
right?
So and especially too because we're one to really follow everything right now, so. We're postponing the wedding basically until the pandemic is going to be declared over. But what we will do directly after the wedding, we're going to have a mini moon that we're still trying to come up with as well. Something that's driving distance, secluded, and things like that. So
a mini moon. I don't think I've ever heard of that. That sounds cool.
I'd never heard of it as well until my fiance. She's the researcher with everything wedding right now. So. Once she came up with that, I was all in. So it's pretty.
That's
good.
A good move on your part, letting her be in charge.
Of course, yeah. I'll let her do all of the easy work.
All right. So, and how have you been coping with COVID, and you and your fiance, for that matter?
Yeah. So we've been coping better than we thought. Especially how we said we've been in the house basically since March. So instead of trying to get on each other's nerves and things like that. We figured out things that we can do together that we normally wouldn't have done. Pick on all different type of shows that we're watching. The biggest thing that we've done, which I never was a fan of until the pandemic, we've done about 6 different 1,000-word puzzles. Never really, was a puzzle person before, but working together to just try to keep our mind sharp and things like that, just kept us active. But besides that, I've been coping, I would say, pretty well. It's just trying to always just the word adjust. It's a tough time for everybody right now. So I never, like complaining too much. So it's just figuring out ways to keep moving and, just wait until everything is back to quote unquote normal.
And you mentioned that you guys are sticklers for following the rules. I talk to a lot of people often about frustration over they see other people that aren't following the rules, and yet you don't want to be Barney Fife and make a citizen's arrest every time you leave their house. But
that's correct.
That's sort of annoying, isn't it?
Oh, big time. And it's funny too because like I said, we're following the rules, making sure everything's we're doing everything, to minimize any risk of, contracting it or obviously spreading it if we were, God forbid to actually, get it. But it's funny, like if she's, really wanting to pay attention to, everyone else. I can't believe, this is that, and she's not too off deck, when she does it, because sometimes people I feel go a little overboard, but she really like we're, just managing. It's like if they're going to do that, we'll just stay away, and things like that. So it's what we try to control, what we can control.
All right. Well, good luck on your mini moon, and good luck in the future, and good luck continuing to cope as we all attempt to stay sane during this really weird time. Duane Ashley from Parks and Rec, really nice talking to you.
Oh, thank you. You as well. All right, John.
All right. Have a good one. When we come back, we will talk with someone from the Mayor's Office of Equity on City Talk. Stay with us.
Hello, my name is Erica Strasburger, and I'm from Pittsburgh City Council District 8. I want the best for my son Evan and all of the kids in Allegheny County. That's why I am signing up for Fund My Future. By simply depositing $1 or more every month, parents are encouraged to save money to help make their child's dreams after high school come true. Just about any savings vehicle is eligible. I'm starting a PA 529 savings plan for my son. Enrolling in Fund My Future is as easy as 1. Enroll in Fund My Future at fundmyfuturepgh.org. 2. Establish a savings account for your child or an existing PA 529 savings plan or Keystone Scholars account. 3. Have fun making deposits. Call 412-440-YOU-WIN. That's 8946 for more details.
Welcome back to City Talk, and say hello to Jordan Fields, who works out of the Mayor's office in the Office of Equity. Jordan, welcome to City Talk.
Thank you so much for having me.
So tell us, what is the Office of Equity and what you do there?
Sure. So I work within the Office of Equity within the Mayor's office. It's led by Chief Majestic Lane, and we consist of basically people in a variety of positions. I serve on the policy team, with several other policy coordinators and policy analysts. We help write legislation, make policy recommendations, and pretty much do anything that any of the chiefs of staff or the mayor asks us to.
And ideally, if we achieved complete equity, which I don't know if that's possible, but obviously that's your ultimate goal, everyone would have a fair shot at all the city services and anything to make their lives better and equitable.
Absolutely. That's our goal, to make Pittsburgh as equitable as possible and to make sure that city residents have equal access to all of the opportunities and programs and services that we provide them.
Can you give us an example of a program or two that people might not know about that you might have introduced them to?
Sure. One of my favorites is the Housing Assistance Resource Portal, also known as HARP. It's a website that anybody can find if you look up City of Pittsburgh HARP or go on the official city website. And it's basically a resource guide for anyone in need of housing assistance, whether you are 18 or 64, whether you're looking to rent a home or buy a home, no matter how many people are living in your home with you. The city provides a list of programs available to city residents offered by different providers in the city, including the URA, the city, the county. And so it's a phenomenal resource, and especially with the seasons changing and the constant need for housing assistance, I really hope that people can find that resource useful and find what they need.
How do they find out about you in order for you to tell them what's going on out there and what services may be available to them?
So again, you can go on the city website. My email address is jordan.fields@pittsburghpa.gov. I believe everyone's email address and phone number, even though some of us are not in the office every day, are available to the public. If you don't have access to a computer, you can go to any of the Carnegie Library locations. I believe they're all open now, or with the exception of one. There might be one branch that's not open, but there are a ton of them throughout the city. Should you need help with just about anything, we're here to assist and serve residents.
Have you been amazed to learn about all these things that I assume you didn't know until you started working in government, didn't know about?
Absolutely, especially having lived here for 4 years as a student. I wasn't as connected to the city government as I would have liked to be. I was a very busy student, but working in the Office of Equity has literally taught me a lot about, the work that the city is doing and the work that we still have to do. And so, I thoroughly enjoy every day joining meetings where I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't even know that we offered that service, but I'm glad that we do because it's very much needed. So, yeah.
Tell us something about your background. Where are you from originally, where you grew up?
Sure. So I was born in Hackensack, New Jersey, raised in Maplewood, New Jersey, right outside of New York, because most people do not know where Essex County is. I grew up in a household with two parents who did a lot of work related to political science. So this is actually a field that I'm somewhat familiar with. Both of my parents have degrees in political science like I do. So it is kind of in my blood, if you will.
And they both worked in politics and government, and so you've been around it since day one.
Yes, they both have experience with politics and government. I always tell people when I was younger, my father took me to a congressional hearing that he had to sit in with Congressman Rangel when I was about 8. And so that was kind of my first exposure to U.S. government. We sat and watched President Bush's motorcade as he went to deliver the State of the Union address. So I'm very much connected.
You've sort of been a political nerd since day one, and I mean that as a compliment.
Yes, absolutely. In 4th grade, I was talking to other classes about the importance of elections. So yes, I would consider myself a political nerd.
And then where did you go to school?
So I went to Columbia High School in Maplewood, New Jersey, and then I went to the University of Pittsburgh, where I was a varsity student athlete. I was on the track team. I studied political science, sociology, and Africana studies. I enjoyed, studying in all 3 departments. I had phenomenal professors, and I was very lucky to have a rewarding and fulfilling experience at the university, despite, anything that a Black female could endure in, a major U.S. city and in an institution of higher learning. I got a lot out of it other than that. So.
Well, since you brought that up, obviously race relations is huge in the news today. How do you feel the city is doing, and has it evolved? What did you have to endure, and is it getting better or not necessarily?
So I think, this is a tough question because where do I begin? I think personally, I was fortunate to have grown up in a household with, again, 2 parents, both had 2 degrees. My dad now has a 3rd one. I can easily say that I have never endured financial hardship. A lot of the oppression that I have experienced is twofold, obviously, as a Black woman. And I, directly experienced it. I had to file a legal complaint against my school district when I was 14, because the high school that I went to had some very racist tracking and discipline policies. Our data was unbelievable. And that's still being worked on in New Jersey, and they have a long way to go. But, I don't think I will ever be satisfied with how anyone is doing until, as, speaking for myself, Black people can feel like they're actually safe here. In America, in Pittsburgh, in, towns across the country. I have these conversations with my parents a lot. And in speaking to my mother the other day, we were both talking about how oftentimes, we still don't feel necessarily free as Black people because of all of these barriers that exist in between us and these rights that we're supposed to be, given freely and fairly. And so, as much as each win or victory feels grand, I recognize that we still have a very, very long way to go until Black people, Indigenous people, people of color in the U.S. are respected, treated fairly, and have equal access, to services, programs, rights that, were supposed to be given to them when the nation was first created.
Very well said. Seriously, but I also kind of glossed over that varsity track. That's a big deal.
Yeah, I was a varsity athlete. I was a 2-time individual state champion in New Jersey. I had 2 state team titles. I was fortunate again to have attended a high school where the track program was nationally recognized. My coach, Lisa Morgan, who I still speak to this day, is like a second mother to me. She's a master strategist. She is someone who is an incredibly talented coach, cared about her athletes and could turn anybody walking down a hallway into a state champion. And I mean that. So, yeah.
All right. And so are you still an active runner?
I am not. I actually did a field event. I was a long and triple jumper. And so running was never fun for me because I only ever ran 100 feet down a runway during competitions. I have not worked out in months. And that's been kind of just to alleviate the stress that came with working out. When you're a D1 athlete, working out and exercising when you're no longer competing, sometimes, you feel like you're still an athlete and you're going as hard as possible. And I don't have to do that anymore. I'm not competing. I recognize that. I'm still trying to maintain a healthy diet, still trying to get outside and walk and drink water and take care of my body. But I recognize that I no longer have to run 3 miles a day or put myself through, excruciating workouts. So.
Well, so you're proud of your past, but it's fine to leave it behind. That was another chapter of your life.
That's the best way to put it. I'm certainly proud of, and I still look back and question how in the world I made it through some of those workouts. But I'm fine with not being active right now.
Good for you. And how are you coping with COVID?
It's difficult because I live on my own in Pittsburgh. I happen to be with my parents right now, but I've been trying to, return to some of my old hobbies. I play an instrument, so I need to get my flute fixed. I've been knitting. I've been trying to keep up with the news. I've been trying to write, trying to get outside while the weather is still nice. But I've been trying to stay away from extremely large groups of people, obviously. I'm just trying to protect myself and the people around me as best as possible. So. Oh,
no, I don't hear a lot of people, young people taking up knitting. Maybe I'm just don't get around as much as I used to. But
I learned how to knit and sew at a very young age. So those are things that I thoroughly enjoy because I can just create things. And they give me something to do with my hands. They stop me from cracking my knuckles. It can be fun. You can make anything you want.
It's therapeutic.
Yes.
I'm guessing. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. So what goals do you have for the future? Would you like to stay in a policy area? Do you see yourself running for office, or is that all yet to be determined?
I'm going to say it's yet to be determined. I really do enjoy doing the policy work because you can you can create solutions for, real world problems that you're seeing in front of your face. I am planning on going to law school, so I'll probably do something, between the lines of law and policy. But, I enjoy writing and problem solving, really. So if I can continue to do something along the lines of that work, I think I'd feel good about the work that I'm doing and I'd feel like I'm actually making a difference, which is my ultimate goal, is to help people who belong to historically marginalized and oppressed groups.
Sounds like you would recommend city government as a career, or at least the start of one.
Oh, yeah, I guess. Yeah.
You don't have to.
I do. I mean, and what I hope people understand is that, you don't necessarily have to come from a political background to run for office or to represent people. I hope that people of all backgrounds and who have studied all fields try to get their foot in the door, because those voices are very much needed. And it always helps to have a diverse group of people. It's called the diversity bonus. It always helps to have a diverse group of people working on an issue, because, you'll get ideas and thoughts from that you wouldn't have even considered that are helpful. So yeah, art, anything.
Jordan Fields, it's really refreshing to talk to somebody who's so passionate about their work, and I'm glad you're where you are.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. Have a nice day.
You too.
That is this edition of City Talk. We'll see you next time.